Hi guys, welcome. And who dat? I'm Joe. Thanks for tuning in to Rosenfield 10. I want you to consider me a friend or a coworker who loves the Saints as much as you do. And when you see me, you want to know what I think about what's going on lately. And that's what my channel's for. Subscribe to my channel, Rosenfield 10. You'll get videos about the Saints, you'll get my opinions, and leave your comments telling me what your opinion is. That would be wonderful. And we can keep the Who Dat community going strong. That's Snickers. And she wants loving today, but I'm reserving my love for today's video. My draft crushes. This is going to be a list of players, upcoming 2025 NFL draft, players I'm in love with for our beloved Bless You Boys in black and gold, the New Orleans Saints. Well, I'm going to talk about each round, 1 through 7, and I'm going to talk about some prospects that I really love, and whether it's the player in particular or the prospect of getting that player in a particular round. There's lots of reasons why I love these draft prospects. I don't know any of them, so it can't be that serious, but I'm putting this out here like I do every draft, and I'll come back later and see who stayed with me and who left me. So we're going to talk about round one first. I've done plenty of videos on this channel talking about round one. I've got a video predicting round one for the Saints where we talk about the top 27 prospects. I've got another video ranking my top 25 prospects this year. We focused a lot on the first round on this channel. So I'll be brief, but there are two players in the first round that I'm really in love with, and for different reasons. The first four players on my board: Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Mason Graham. I think if either of those four players are there, you take them. After that, it's a tier of players, and I'd be happy with any of them. Lots of guys. People seem to really love Shadir Sanders right now. I've got him ranked as a second round prospect and kind of midway through the second round prospect. There's a chance if he's there at 40, I would go ahead and take him if I was in love with the player, but I'm not so high on that player. Ashton Genty, on the other hand, I'm very high on. I wouldn't mind taking him at 9. It makes a lot of sense. The team doesn't have a quarterback right now, so you get another running back, you focus on the running game. I can see the beauty in all of it. I'm going to talk about two players here that I'm gravitating towards. And the first one is number 5 on my big board after the 4 that you have to take. And that's tight end Tyler Warren. Maybe my biggest love in the draft. I like Tyler Warren quite a bit. I think that he can do it all as a tight end. There's a lot of Saints content providers out there that are talking about the first round right now, and a guy like Nick Underhill from New Orleans Football says, he loves Tyler Warren. And he think it would be great, but he thinks a bigger impact would be made getting the running back Ashton Genty, and I think that's his number one guy right now. He wants Ashton Genty. I saw another channel. Lance Moore was featured on it, former Saints wide receiver, and he was saying with the 9th overall pick, he would take tight end Tyler Warren, and he thinks that that would have a really big impact on a team. I kind of agree with Lance on this one. Tyler Warren is 6'5.5" 256 pounds. He's really good receiver, good with his body. People say he's incredibly athletic. I think he's kind of slow and lumbering, but he does use his body well. He's athletic enough to take the ball from whoever's next to him. and break a few tackles along the way. So I think that Tyler Warren would be a big boost to this team. I think we need someone to help with blocking. We need someone to help as a playmaker in the running game and the receiving game. I think Tyler Warren brings all of that. He also brings that element of wild card where you're not sure where he's going to line up. And he showed in college he can do it all. He can throw passes, he can run the ball, he can split out wide and catch the ball. He had several carries as a running back this past year. Not as many as he could have gotten, but they had a couple of really good running backs at Penn State at the time. And, I think as a character guy, I'm pretty sure he would be fine. I've never met these players, so my love is fleeting, but it is true. It is there, and yeah, there's probably a group of 10 people after my top four that I would have to debate about in the war room. But my heart is with Tyler Warren. I could be swayed to pick someone else, but I'm going to mention a bunch of guys that I'm in love with. One more player that I have a crush on in the first round. Offensive tackle Will Campbell out of LSU. I watch his film and a lot of times I'm dissatisfied. There's some things he does and I think to myself, well, he's still got things to learn. I mean, he's a very productive player. He looks good. I can see the limitations. I think of him playing left guard and I get really excited because I think he'd be really good at left guard. I think he'd be fine at left tackle too. My attitude about this is you've got Trevor Penning as your starting right tackle, and you have we don't know as your starting left guard. So let's say the new guy we sign in free agency, let's say he starts at left guard, and he is a better left guard than Trevor Penning is a right tackle. If that's the case, then you get Will Campbell, you start him at left tackle, you put Fuanga at right tackle, and you've upgraded your line because you've got a slightly better player than Trevor Penning starting at left guard. You give your rookie the tackle job, and I'm good to go like that. If Trevor Penning is a better prospect at right tackle than our new left guard would be at left guard, then put Will Campbell at left guard. I like the idea of having Fuanga and Campbell on the left side of the line. That sounds formidable and pretty good to me. The thing I love the most about Will Campbell is his intelligence. He seems to have passion for football and he's pretty smart and, you know, he's got that going for him. So he may not have long arms. Sometimes he oversets and can get beat on the inside when he does that. You feel like he's oversetting because of his lack of length. I think there's some things that he can still work on as a player, but overall, I think he would be a fine addition to the left side of our offensive line. Now, there's a lot of other players in this draft that I love. I can't mention all of them here, but I thought it would be good to mention those two. If we come out of the first round in this year's draft with either Tyler Warren or Will Campbell, I'll be very happy. I'll also be happy with Ashton Jeanty. I'll be happy with Tetaroa McMillan. I'll be happy with Armand Mimbu. I'll be happy with Will Johnson. I'll be happy with Jade Barron. So yeah, there's a lot of players in the first round that I'd be happy with. Thought I would highlight Warren and Campbell. Now let's move on to round two. Once you get in the round two, the Saints have one pick in the first round, one pick in the second round. There's so many things you can do in round two. And God, if we only had a couple of picks here, it would make me feel a lot better. There's one guy in particular. Well, first off, there's a couple of players that they're supposed to be late first round picks. If they manage to fall into the second round, they would be a steal. So I'm going to mention them first. First, I'm going to mention offensive lineman Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. Gray Zabel is 6'6", 312 pounds. Played tackle at North Dakota State. It's a smaller school. Not quite sure what you're going to get with a guy like that. It would probably be a risk in the first round for a lot of Saints fans. But I'm sold on Gray Zabel. He went to the Senior Bowl practices and they wanted him to play guard and center. Same thing happened to Nick Saldiveri a couple of years ago, where they wanted to see him at the Senior Bowl practices play in the interior of the offensive line, and Saldiveri did good. And I think during the Senior Bowl game, they had Saldiveri play center, and he held up pretty good. So that was nice. And then, we drafted him in the fourth round, and man can't seem to play left guard, can't seem to get on the field and stay there. So the difference with Zabel is they did the same thing with him, put him in the interior offensive line during the practices. The difference is he dominated when he did it. It wasn't, oh, he held up pretty good. He showed he could do it. No, he dominated. He got put in a situation where he was going against much better competition, playing different positions that he hadn't played before, and he dominated. I watched about six or eight Senior Bowl practice wrap ups, risers, fallers. Every single one of them spent a lot of time talking about Gray Zabel. They said he was on the very short list of best player at the Senior Bowl practices. So I'm sold on the guy. I like his measurables. He's built to play tackle, but he showed he could do it all, including center. And so I'm a fan of Gray Zabel. I think he gets drafted in the first round, though. And because he's from a small school, I'm not too keen on the idea of trading back into the first round to get him. But if for some reason Zabel slips into round two, he might be worth moving up to get at that point. Certainly worth getting with the 40th overall pick. Like I say, Gray Zabel will probably be gone, and this other draft crush of mine will probably be gone by the second round too, and that is offensive tackle Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Josh Simmons is 6 foot 5 inches, 317 pounds. He's a really good tackle. He can work on some things. I think that his build and his athleticism, I think, yeah, he's good to go. If he wouldn't have got hurt this year, he'd be a bona fide first round pick. Might be the best tackle in the class. I think he needs to work on his pass protection a little bit. I think he needs to work on his run blocking a little bit more. But overall, he's a really good prospect. I think Josh Simmons, because of the injury, is going to fall into, second half of round one. If there's a run on offensive linemen, then Josh Simmons is gone. But if there are other positions that that teams are making a run on in the first round, then you could see some of these offensive linemen slip into the second round. Josh Simmons is the type of guy that I wouldn't mind trading back into the first round to get. People talk about us doing that with quarterback all the time. I don't really want to trade back into the first round for anything unless I acquire extra picks and then I can package them and move up. We got a extra third, and extra fourth this year because of the Marshawn Lattimore trade. I would rather get two players to replace Marshawn Lattimore than to package both those picks and move up and get one player. So I'm pumping the brakes a little when it comes to trading back into the first round. If you don't want to get a guy with one draft pick, why would you want to spend two or three on him? But if Josh Simmons makes it to the second round, that would be a guy, yeah, for sure I would trade up to the top of the second round to try to move up from 41 to 33. You might only have to give up one draft pick to do that. And Josh Simmons, I feel, would be a guy to go and get. He shows that he's good from his injury. Great. As a matter of fact, this man is visiting the Saints today. It's Tuesday, and what's the date today? Tuesday, April 15th. Tax day, right? April 15th. So Josh Simmons visiting the New Orleans Saints today. He's going to get to show them where he's at from his medical point of view, standpoint, and get to interview the guy and get to see him move around. And yeah, if he's there in the second round, it would be a great pick. All right, let's talk about a draft crush that everybody has, especially for the New Orleans Saints. And that would be in the second round, wide receiver Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State, 6'4", 214 pounds. This is the guy I've mocked to the Saints in the second round, probably more than anybody else. I've done hundreds of mock drafts on my own time, and I am always gravitating towards this pick in the second round. If you don't get Tetairoa McMillan in the first round, Jaden Higgins is there for you in the second round. And I kind of like Higgins more at wide receiver than I do McMillan. I just think he's a overall more safe bet. I mean, talent wise, I think they're pretty close. McMillan's better, but yeah, I'm in love with the idea of grabbing a wide receiver in the second or third round, and Jaden Higgins is at the top of my list in the second round. Very athletic and uses his size a little better, and we've got us a nice complete first round type receiver. So Higgins is on everybody's short list in the second round. We've only got one second round pick. I've seen so many mock drafts this past week, and everyone's ignoring offensive line. They end up getting one in the seventh round. You know, we did that last year. We got a tackle in the seventh round, and he was on our practice squad all year. And now everybody this year wants to do the same thing. Let's just grab a guard in the bottom of day two, and he'll start, and then grab a tackle later on. And I don't know, man. I think a seventh round wide receiver would make it better than a seventh round offensive tackle. That's just the way I'm looking at it. But let's see what happens. Jaden Higgins is on the top of everybody's board, I think, for the second round. So good stuff. I love you, Jaden Higgins. Love you. All right. The next guy I want to talk about is an offensive lineman, another one from Ohio State, offensive guard slash tackle. Donovan Jackson, 6'4", 315 pounds. Donovan Jackson played half this year at left tackle when Josh Simmons got hurt. And I'm excited about Donovan Jackson. The thing that excites me the most about him is he's pretty good run blocker from the left guard position. And we need to get the running game going. So he also showed that he's willing to work hard at getting better as a player. He's forced to play left tackle, and he got better and better. And a lot of the deficiencies that people have with Donovan Jackson, in my opinion, it stems from his time at left tackle. All of his limitations are because he was playing out of position. But remember, they won the championship, and he was shutting out everybody in the playoffs. And he was playing his best competition at the time. So I love that Donovan Jackson rose to the occasion and was able to play dominant football toward the end at a position that he shouldn't have been playing. And then you look at the limitations and you're like, well, that's probably because he was out there at tackle. Put him back at guard, you relieve those limitations, and you have yourself a solid player. I'm really high on getting Donovan Jackson in the second round. We've got one second round pick. And I really think one of our first two picks, either your first round or your second rounder, should go to an offensive lineman. Because I think you get much better players at the top and the middle of the draft with offensive linemen than you would at the bottom. Sure, we've got exceptions to the rule. Teron Armstead in the third round, Jermon Bushrod in the fourth round, Carl Nix in the fourth round, Jari Evans in the fifth round. We've gotten great offensive linemen before in the middle rounds. But yeah, they are certainly exceptions to the rule. So when the Saints pick comes up in round two, and we have a choice between Jaden Higgins and Donovan Jackson, I don't know what to do at that point. On my big board, I'm picking Jackson, and I'll just try to find a big receiver later on. Trey Harris in the third round, or just anybody with a big body on day three, just so we can have that type, because that's the type that we're missing. I have to be sold. I have to have conviction on these players. And I have conviction when it comes to wide receiver Jaden Higgins. And I also have conviction when it comes to Donovan Jackson. You know you're not going to fill every hole in one draft. So if we stick and pick with the 9 picks that we have, it's going to be a massive haul for the Saints, comparatively speaking. And you're still not going to meet all of your needs. So hopefully the Saints hit. If I was the GM and I had a choice between Higgins and Jackson, man, I'd probably wait till the last minute to turn my card in. I'd probably be pushing for Jackson the entire time. Might regret it. That's where I'm standing. All right. Another very popular round 2 mock selection for the Saints is a cornerback. And yeah, it's a good spot to get a cornerback. If you don't grab one of the top 2 in the first round, you can definitely get a really good one in the second round. And I'm going to highlight Trey Amos out of Ole Miss, 6'1", 195 pounds. Trey Amos is a solid player. You know, I keep messing these players' names up, and I'm supposed to have crushes on them. I'm not a very good significant other here. Trey Amos, and when I see T. Amos, I think of Tori Amos. And anyway, I've seen Ole Miss, lots of highlights of them. Amos is a solid player. I wouldn't spend a first round pick on him, but he's in that bunch. It's prime to take him in the second round. Like I say, along with Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame or Azaria Thomas out of Florida State. I'm not high on Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky, but he's there along with another guy, Darian Porter. So, but if I had my choice of all of them in the second round, I think the consensus around Saints Nation is Trey Amos is the guy. You get him in the second round, you're stoked. I mean, think about that. We've got a first rounder and a second rounder. Let's say we get Ashton Genty with the first round pick, and then you come back in the second round and get Jaden Higgins. I'm excited. That's awesome. I'm bummed that you didn't get a cornerback. I'm really bummed that you didn't get an offensive lineman. Of course, no defensive lineman to be found either. So, yeah, yeah, you can get 2 great players in the first 2 rounds. You're just going to be so many holes on this team to fill. It's definitely going to be a work in progress. But yeah, Trey Amos at cornerback would definitely fill a need, and I'd be excited for it. In the last second round projection, I'm going to mention that I have a crush on is Carson Schwessinger out of UCLA. I do love me some Schwessinger. He's an interesting guy at linebacker, 6'2", 242 pounds. Do we need a linebacker so badly that we would use a second round pick on him? Well, I don't think he's going to make it to the third round. And you are taking some chances with Schwessinger as he has only 1 year I think, only 1 year of starting at linebacker for UCLA. He was kind of like a special team or spot player. And then before last year for UCLA, both of their edge rushers got drafted or went into the league and went to the NFL. And so they ended up moving Oluwafemi Oladejo from linebacker to edge to replace, I think their name was Grayson. And then Schlesinger had to play a bigger part at linebacker. And he ends up with leading college in tackles, 136 tackles, I think he had. Looks really good against the run. Really good at getting after the passer. I love the way he's able to read the offensive line and avoid blocks. I like the way that if he does get locked up, he can get off the blocks. I love his movement skills. I love his instincts. So the downside is he doesn't have a lot of experience starting and playing, but the upside is he looks like he's a natural at it. And that excites me because If you're going to get a guy that you're hoping you can coach up and they get better and better and better, it's not so much a project if they've already got a season with 136 tackles. I don't remember how many sacks he had. I think he had 4 or 6 sacks. You know, he looks good against the run. There's lots of things he needs to work on, but when you're already producing at that high of a level, so early in your career, it's like pretty exciting. So, yeah, linebacker's not the position of choice if you're going to be position specific, but I am in love with Schwessinger. I would love to see that guy on the outside playing linebacker for us, rushing the passer. It would get me very excited. That wraps up my breakdown of round two prospects. Let's move into round three. We have two round three picks, one at 71, one at 93. 93 is at the very bottom of the third round. So it's essentially a fourth rounder, in my opinion, kind of, sort of. But we do have two thirds. And early in the third round, we might want to grab a quarterback. If we're not sold on a quarterback, to take it, pick 9 in the first round. We go into the second round. I'm not sold on Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe or even Tyler Shuck. Tyler Shuck gets injured a lot. I think he's pretty inconsistent as a player. And those injuries, man, if that's going to be an issue with him, then how much of a player are you really getting when you draft that guy? So I'm not as high on Shuck as everybody else. I've seen a lot of people want the Saints to grab a quarterback this year. And if Jackson Dart's there in the second round, you're supposed to grab him and be happy. I think Dart might get taken before the Saints pick at 40. I think there's a string of teams that might pass on a quarterback in the first round that pick before the Saints that would grab a quarterback then. I also think there might be quarterback needy teams or teams that are interested in a quarterback that would be willing to move up in the second round and get a guy. Should the Saints move up and get a guy? Well, my favorite quarterback in the draft, no one's talking about. And according to the boards, he's going to get taken in the late third into the fourth round. And that's the national champion himself, quarterback Will Howard out of Ohio State. Nobody's talking about Will Howard. He's just not special. There's not very many special quarterbacks in this league, in this draft. Will Howard, 6'4", 236 pounds. He's the exact same size as Josh Allen. Is Will Howard athletic? Pretty athletic. He wants to take off running. He can take off running. I think he had the biggest run in the championship game. They wanted him to run a lot in that game. He showed he could. He's tough. Is he accurate? He's pretty accurate. If I would give him a Madden rating on his throw accuracy, I would probably put him at around 84, 82, something like that. Not great, but maybe 75 to 82, somewhere around there. Definitely work with it. Arm strength, no, he doesn't have the arm of Josh Allen. He doesn't really have the strength of a guy at 6'4", 230 plus pounds, you would think he would have. But it's strong enough to make the throws. I don't see any issue there. It's not like Shadur Sanders, who reads everything late and then tries to fit the ball in and doesn't have nearly the arm strength required to amend those mistakes. So I have a little more faith in Will Howard. But what I really love about Will Howard is his love for the game. He loves football. You give him a challenge and he meets it. He was at Kansas State. They brought in another quarterback and everyone told him hit the portal. He loved his coach. He wanted to give it one more run. I think he kind of wanted to prove that he was better than the guy they were bringing in. Well, that season ended up with Kansas State winning their conference, their championship. So not the national championship, but It was a combination of both quarterbacks. Then the next year, Will Howard transfers to Ohio State. Of course, Ohio State's filled with great players. Will Howard did not come in and bring the team down. Will Howard came in, he was part of a team. They win the national championship. I like the character of the guy. I love that fact that he loves football. He's got the physical tools to do everything you need from a quarterback. I like the way he reads the defense. I've seen some breakdowns where they say, well, he was focused on just half the field. Well, that's not the way the offense was called. And he knew what every route was doing. He knows what to audible into. He knows what kind of formation routes would kill a man, kill a zone. He's got his head wrapped around all of that. And I think he reads defenses really quickly. And so there you go. Maybe he only focused on half of the formations because he was trying to get the ball out on time and he knew which route on that side of the field was going to get open. They say the same thing about Jackson Dart. I think the play calls for Jackson Dart were limiting, forcing him to just look at half the field. I don't think that was the case with Will Howard. I think he can read the whole field. But he gets the ball out fast enough for me. That's my biggest gripe on Shadir Sanders. Just holding on to the ball too long. Yeah, he got sacked 99 times in the last 2 years of Shadir Sanders. Half of those sacks were after 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Is that really bad offensive line play, or is that just the player's inability to read a defense? I'm not sold. But I am sold on Will Howard. I think Will Howard is a really good player. I think the worst thing that would happen is you draft him in round three. He turns out to be a really good backup, a guy that's talented enough where you're just not going to get rid of him. But he could develop into a special player. That's the kind of chance I'll take this year. If Kellen Moore's in love with a guy and it's in the mid rounds, that would make me so happy because you're not spending prime draft capital on a quarterback just because you feel like you need one. You do need one, but you're not going to replace us. You're not going to get your franchise quarterback by reaching. So if they're in love with Dart, get Dart. If they're in love with Sanders, get Sanders. Grab them when you know you can. And yet, Will Howard might last to the fourth round, but I would take him in round three with pick 71. And, honestly, if I was Kellen Moore and I was actually in love with this quarterback, then yeah, I would take him in round two. This is the one I've got a crush on. Will Howard. Nobody's talking about you, buddy, but I love you. And I would love for you to come join the Saints in round three. Another round three prospect I got to talk about is edge rusher Braden Swinson, 6'4", 255 pounds, and he's from the Bayou Bengal Tigers, LSU. Braden Swinson's a great stand-up edge rusher. I think that he presents a lot of problems for defenses. My favorite thing about Swinson is he doesn't quit. Sometimes when he comes in real hard and he gets blocked up, so I think sometimes he loses where the quarterback is at that point, but it doesn't stop his effort. He's still looking and then he's still chasing. You get that kind of motor with those kind of tools and talent, and you can see some great things happening. I've seen him mocked. I've seen Braden Swinson mocked into the second round in the last week or two. So he's not a secret anymore. Just 3 weeks ago, he was a fourth round projection. I think Braden Swinson's worth a draft pick, and I think you would have to get him in a third round. Ideally, if you grab three players in the draft and then you get to the bottom of the third round, you still haven't addressed defensive line yet. Braden Swinson would be my ideal edge rusher to pick at that point. Big school, great competition, motor that doesn't quit, physical tools. I think you can pass on a defensive lineman or an edge rusher early in the draft. If you set your sights on a guy like this in the third round, especially the bottom of the third round, Braden Swinson would be a great pick for me. One of my draft crushes. I also love safety Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State. Yeah, he got hurt last year. He only played in 3 games, and then he got hurt, and he's a forgotten guy. He's toolsy. He's good deep, but he's really good in the box too. And my favorite thing about him and why I love Winston so much is he doesn't miss tackles. I think he only missed 2 tackles his entire career. And we need good tacklers on this team. I think I think Brandon Staley's defense requires DBs to be able to do all kinds of stuff. And yeah, Kevin Winston Jr. would be a guy that you could line up on the second level and not quite sure where he's going to go, what he's going to do. But if he's at the line of scrimmage and he's able to get involved in the initial tackles, you're going to be really happy with Winston. He's got a late first round, second round talent level. And because of the injury, no one's considering him early. And if he slips into round 3, it would be a steal. It's right around the same place where I would consider Andrew Makuba out of Texas, who might slip further than this. But in the third round, I'm grabbing safety Kevin Winston Jr., and I'm pretty happy with that third round pick. Running back is another position the Saints are wanting to focus on. I think we have Alvin Kamara. I think we have a really good running back. What we need is a number 2 guy. And I think you just bring a couple of rookie free agents in here to compete. Maybe you grab another veteran. The thing about the running back position is you can get really good ones late in the draft. You can get really good ones that are undrafted. You can grab guys off the street that can come in and produce at a pretty decent level at running back. So when you're focusing on just grabbing your backup running back, well, then it, you know, sounds ridiculous to draft one high. But Genty's supposed to be a special player, so you grab him in the first round and you ask no questions. I wouldn't want to take a running back in the second round either, as much as I love the kids from Ohio State or Cam Scatteraboo or anybody after Omarion Hampton, Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. I don't want to grab anybody like that in the second round. We have too many needs on this team. I feel like we have Alvin Kamara, unless it's a generational player like Genty. Let's go ahead and grab one late. But in the third round, if this guy's still here, then yeah, I might forego all the other positions of need and go ahead and just draft the guy that I have a crush on. That's Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. Travion Henderson is 5'10", 202 pounds, so slightly smaller than Kamara, but he's super fast, really good at pass blocking. I love that about him. That's why I have such a crush on him. He's such an all-around, well-rounded player. He's not going to be the workhorse, but man, he can get to the edge running the ball. He can run between the tackles. He's a weapon in the passing game, and you don't have to take him out. He can stay in all 3 downs. He can pick up blitzes, you know, all around guy. Pretty sure someone's going to grab Henderson in the second round. I'm not willing to spend a first or second round pick on a running back if I can grab one in this deep class. So, Travion Henderson slipping into the third round. Whew, you grab him at 71, you're really happy. You might actually move up in the third round to grab him if he's still there. A special player. It's a position of need, in my opinion, backup position of need. He could be your eventual Kamara replacement, but you would need to draft someone else or sign someone else to carry the load with him. But love me some Henderson in round 3. The last guy I'm going to mention in the round 3 area, cornerback Darian Porter out of Iowa State, 6'3", 195 pounds. He's really light. But man, there's a lot of talent here. 9.9 RAS score. I think he ran a 4.3 40. He had a broad jump that was 10 foot 11 inches. His vertical is like 37. Immense talent, fast, tall. He's long enough. I mean, he's a great prospect at cornerback. So you don't grab one of the top two guys in the first round. You go into the second round. You've got all that talent at cornerback in the second round, but yet you decide to grab someone else. We need offensive linemen. We need wide receivers. We need a tight end. Mason Taylor in the second round would make a lot of sense. We need defensive linemen. Man, you pass on the cornerback in the second round. It's like, man, a lot of good players there. Somebody might fall into the third round if there's not a run on cornerback. Darian Porter's the guy that more often than not in the mocks is the one still lingering around in round three. Now, I've seen him drafted in the first round. I've seen him mostly drafted in the second round. But if you don't grab a cornerback in the first two rounds, Darian Porter's the kind of guy that I would make a move to get at the top of the third round. I think he's too good to pass up. As a matter of fact, I've addressed quarterback in the first two rounds for the Saints in mock drafts before, and then got to the third round, and Darian Porter was still there, and I thought he's too good of a player to pass up. So I ended up drafting Trey Amos and Darian Porter. Oh, you want to fix your secondary? You can do that. I'm just saying I love Porter as a prospect, especially in round three. I think it's just a steal. So you want to build a good team. You don't worry about what you already have. My issue is I am position specific constantly. So when I did my top 25, my rankings, a lot of it had to do with specific position. Yeah, I love Ashton Genty. I think he might be a transformative player. He might be a generational player, but we have Alvin Kamara. So I would kind of lean towards getting a player at a position that that we don't already have a Pro Bowler at. But the real smart thing to do in the draft is you get the best player available, regardless of what you have, and you make it work. You figure it out. And I think our head coach, Kellen Moore, or as Gail Benson would say, Ellen Moore, I think that he can take what he has and he can make the offense work. I've said it before. If you have a tight end and you get a tight end, you start running two tight ends. If you grab a wide receiver, maybe you're going four wide. And on defense, if Darian Porter's there in the third round, regardless of what you've done earlier in the draft, he's probably too good of a player to pass up there. Or you could be position specific and grab somebody else that I've mentioned. Oh, let's go to round four. It's another round that we have two draft picks in. I'm so excited because there's lots of players in the fourth round that I love as well. I think the meat of this draft is the second and third round. If you could trade down in the first round and pick up additional picks in the second or third round, you'd be doing your team a favor. I did not mention Tate Ratledge as a third round prospect for the Saints. Everybody wants to avoid offensive line and still grab Tate Ratledge in round three. That's everyone's goal. Yeah, I love Tate Ratledge too. I don't love that he's been a right guard this whole time, and we'd want him to play left guard. But other than that, yeah, I would grab him in the third round. I thought I'd mention that. Let's move on to the fourth round, and I'm going to talk about an offensive lineman here. Offensive tackle Anthony Belton out of North Carolina State. Anthony Belton is 6 foot 6 inches, 336 pounds. He's a massive dude. And he has a lot of ability. He would need some time to develop, though. North Carolina State isn't the greatest, biggest school in the world, but this is a big man. And he's got some tools. I love the idea of Belton falling into the fourth round. If you don't address offensive line and you're going to take a project, you can wait till the seventh round and grab whoever, uh, whether it's Rivers out of Miami or the offensive tackle out of Iowa State. I mean, there's a lot of tackle, the kid out of Kansas, and there's a lot of projects you can grab in the seventh round, but how close are they really? I think Anthony Belton's probably a little closer than the rest of them. So Belton's a guy I focus on the fourth round, especially if you haven't grabbed an offensive lineman yet. I like me some big boy Anthony Belton. I also like a couple of defensive linemen in the fourth round. We're moving to a 3-4. We're not going to run a three front all the time, but I have my eyes on defensive end, big body defensive ends, because right now we're going to go out there with what? Carl Granderson and Chase Young. Chase Young might be standing up. He might be in more of a wider set than that. So Nathan Shepard, Brian Bresee, who can't stop the run. You got Cam Jordan. We got a lot of defensive ends who could play 3-4 defensive end. Now I'm looking at these two guys in the fourth round because I think their makeup puts them at 3-4 defensive end very well. The first one I'm going to talk about is Jared Ivey, Ole Miss defensive end, 6 foot 6 inches, 274 pounds. I think 274 is his combine weight. Ivy could get up above 280, so he's a big guy, and I think he'd be perfect at 3-4 defensive end. He shows enough versus the run that I feel like he would make the team. It would be an upgrade. Can he get after the passer like a Brian Bresee? Probably not. Like a Carl Granderson? I don't know. I'm not sure. But he is good against the run, and he's the body type we need for 3-4 defensive end. We've got all of these defensive linemen that we re-signed on our team, and it just feels like to me, if you get one in the early rounds, you're going to have to get a special player because they're going to have to be special to start above all of the talent and veterans we have on the defensive line. We didn't get a lot of production out of the defensive line last year, so. But if you don't, you have all of these positions to address, and if you don't address defensive line, wouldn't be a bad place to go. I think a defensive end in a 3-4, a guy built like Jared Ivey would work. And the other defensive end I'm going to mention here in the fourth round conversation is defensive end Elijah Roberts out of SMU. 6 foot 4 inches, 285 pounds. He is a thick boy too. And yeah, I think he projects as a 3-4 defensive end in this league very well. He's got some size and versatility, so you can bounce him around. Um, Overall, he's projected to be, an average backup kind of player, kind of like Jared Ivey. Jared Ivey might turn into a decent starter. They don't have a lot of people ranking Roberts as good as high as Ivey. And I've seen Elijah Roberts in the fifth round a lot. We don't have a fifth round pick this year. And I have to skip the fifth round when I do this breakdown. You might have to reach in the fourth round for a guy that would naturally fit in the fifth round because you don't have a fifth round pick. It wouldn't be much of a reach to get Elijah Roberts, in my opinion, with that last fourth round pick. How about the safety Andrew Makuba out of Texas? I already talked about him as a late third round prospect. If he's still there in the fourth round, yeah, that's a guy you can go and get. He's a small guy, 5'11", 186 pounds. It's probably my only knock on him is his size. He's a willing tackler, but how good of a tackler can you be when you're that small? It's kind of like Tyrann Mathieu size. Matthew's a little shorter than Makubu. Makuba is a good all-around player, though. I wouldn't be scared of him coming to the line of scrimmage. And he's got some versatility. When he plays deep, he's a playmaker and pretty good. Plays the ball very well. So I'm a fan of Andrew Makuba in the fourth round, especially if we don't address the secondary early. This guy falls into the fourth round. Yeah, you run the card up and grab him, and you've got a piece. I'd be very interested in seeing Makuba play 1 year, 2 years under Tyrann Mathieu and learn from that guy. Xavier Watts is another player. You might have to get him in the second round, but would be another player I'd be interested in seeing Tyrann Mathieu spend some time with and, coach him up and get him better. So I have my eye on Makuba. Yeah, in the fourth round. And the last guy I'm going to mention, another secondary piece that we can grab in the fourth round. If you don't grab Johnson in the first round, if you don't grab Amos in the second round, if you don't grab Porter in the third round, well, how about the fourth round and cornerback Quincy Riley out of Louisville? I've always been a fan of his. He was always one that I wanted to draft in the mid rounds. I've been gravitating towards him for months, and we've got these big breakdowns, recently in the last couple of weeks about the draft since we're so close. I've been doing this stuff for months since we're so close, and people are getting keen to Quincy Riley. So, if I'm wrong, a bunch of people will be wrong. He's another small guy, 5'11", 194 pounds, but I think he's got some tools. I think he's going to be a good player, and I think we need help at cornerback. This is the situation where I might get in trouble in the draft because we need a cornerback. I feel like we need another cornerback. We need a backup running back, but we don't need a potential starter at running back. We might need a potential starter at cornerback, but if you don't address it early, at least get another body in this building that can compete. Can Quincy Riley compete with Isaac Yiadom for an outside corner spot? It's possible. Yiadom, I don't remember what round he was drafted in. I'm not sure if he was drafted at all. I was under the assumption Yiadom was a day three guy or an undrafted guy. But anyway, I like having Yiadom as a backup, someone who can go out there as a veteran and play well on the outside should someone get injured. But I want to get another piece in the pipeline. Quincy Riley's a guy that I think is worth a fourth round pick, especially if you don't address cornerback early. Yeah, I like you too, Riley. All right. I got a cat named Riley. That's my baby. I haven't seen him today. So, next round is the fifth round. We don't have a fifth round pick. Well, if we trade down at some point in the draft, we can probably acquire a fifth round pick as part of a package deal. So I'm not ruling out the possibility of getting a fifth round pick, but there are some very good, interesting players to grab in the fifth round. Like I said, we're going to have, in this situation, we're going to have to reach in the fourth round for some of them, or we're going to have to hope that some of them fall into the sixth round. So let's talk about sixth round picks, and this will include seventh round picks as well. And this is going to wrap up the video. I've already been going almost an hour. I have a lot of loves. I can't help it. I have a lot of love to give. I have a lot of crushes. The sixth round. Perfect place to get a running back, in my opinion. And here's two of them that I really like, starting with Jordan James out of Oregon. This running back is 5 foot 9.5 inches, 205 pounds. Not the biggest guy. As a pass blocker, he's willing because of his size. It's one of them things, but he's willing. He's also a good runner, and he's a decent receiver. So you get an all-around guy like this that can come in the sixth round and compete for a backup running back spot. I like that idea. I think that running back is a necessity for this team, but it's not the big pressing need. It really isn't if Alvin Kamara stays healthy. If you can get anything out of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you still got, I mean, think about it. Jordan Mims was our number three running back for most of the year last year because Kendre Miller was always hurt. And then there's Kendre Miller, who might actually learn how to pass protect and stay healthy for a change. Anyway, I still think you need a running back. I just don't think it's a pressing need early in the draft. Jordan James is a good option for me in the sixth round. I like to grab him if he's available. Another guy in the sixth round that I love to take, and I would take ahead of Jordan James, is Brashard Smith, the running back out of SMU. I love me some Brashard Smith. I love the fact that he used to play wide receiver and that he's so good in the passing game. Um, I feel like he would get a lot of playing time with that skill set. The only issue I have with Brashard Smith, 5'10", 194 pounds, is his pass protection. You know, he needs to. I think he needs to fall in love with that, and then show a little more effort in that. But as a receiver out of the backfield, as a running back, sometimes he's get up and go is pretty good. Same with Jordan James. You might run into the back of your blocks. You're trying to get through there so fast. Little caveats, things that need to be coached up. That's the reason why you're getting picked in the sixth round. But with Brashard Smith, what gives me the advantage over Jordan James for me to take him in the sixth round, Rashard Smith being that wide receiver type. I mean, I feel like a lot of options here. You make it work, get him on the field. All right, let's talk about a guy that would have to fall into the sixth round for us to get him, and that's edge rusher David Walker out of Central Arkansas. Mercy, mercy, mercy. I think his talent. Let's start with his measurables. 6'1", 263 pounds. So 6'1", pretty short. 263, well, it's slightly bigger than a linebacker, but not much more. With a 6'1" frame, you're not sure if he's going to get much bigger than 263. But man, he gets after the quarterback. He he's been at that small school. I think he spent the first couple of years at a college called Southern Arkansas, and then he went to Central Arkansas. But every year he was in college, he was his conference's defensive player of the year. Every year that he started, I think twice at Southern Arkansas, and then last year, conference defensive player of the year. 3 years in a row, maybe four. 3 years in a row. Defensive player of the year. I mean, this guy's getting multiple sacks. I think his first year he only had eight, and then he had 8.5, and then last year he had 14 or 16. The year before he had 12 or 14. I mean, the guy's a sack master. So my issue with him is, despite his size, people might still want to take a shot on him in the fourth round. I think he's a borderline third round talent. And yeah, David Walker would be the perfect guy if he fell into the fifth round to jump up and grab in the fifth round. I might try to package up some picks and go get him in the fifth round if I don't have an edge rusher by the time the fifth round comes. But man, if he fell to the sixth round, yeah, I'll trade away sixth and seventh round picks next year to move up in the sixth round and grab him. He's that kind of an impact player to me. Size limitation, whatever. The production is just outstanding. So, like I said, this is probably never going to happen, but it would be a mega value in the sixth round. Probably worth trading into the fifth round for. All right, here's a guy who should follow the sixth round, and that's defensive tackle Cam Jackson out of Florida. 6'6", 328 pounds. Jackson has really long arms, and he's really good against the run, and he is a nose tackle. So you get this guy, and what you're getting is a two-down player who's going to come in on early downs and stop the run. Jackson has shown almost nothing when it comes to rushing the passer. That's just the way it goes when you talk about these nose tackles. But if you want a big body to put on your defensive line, I think the talent level, the measurables are there. Cam Jackson is a guy that I'm focusing on in the sixth round. You need beef on the defensive line. You get to the sixth round, you haven't addressed it yet. Cam Jackson gives you a lot. He can dominate with them big arms and 330 pounds, just a massive dude. He would work out great. It's a perfect spot for him in the sixth round. So I love his long arms, and I love his ability to stop the run. I love the fact that he's probably going to be there in the sixth round because he doesn't give you anything as a pass rusher. Well, Neither does Devon Godchild. So neither neither does any of our nose tackles that we have. Colin Saunders can get there every now and then, but I don't even know if this team considers Saunders a nose tackle type, even though he's a big boy. All right, 6th round offensive lineman. I sense some of you are looking for offensive linemen. You don't want to pick them early, so who do we get at the end of the draft? Well, a guy I really like is Jack Nelson out of Wisconsin. 6'7", 314 pounds. Nelson has some good tape. He could be on the offensive tackle list of players that, if like I said, if there's a run on tackles, that he might be in the mid round kind of a list. Now, every site's projecting him to go day 3, but there are some individuals out there that think people are sleeping on Nelson. The only issue I have with Nelson is his lack of strength for being 6'7", 314 pounds. Get this guy in the weight room, get him a little stronger. His movement's decent. I think this is a guy that's not as much a project in the later rounds as other offensive linemen would be. I think he's got true mid-round talent. So I'm always grabbing Jack Nelson in the 6th round if I haven't addressed offensive line yet in the draft. So then we're going to round out this long video with 2 wide receivers in the 6th, 7th round that I would like to get, starting with wide receiver Pat Bryant out of Illinois, 6'2", 204 pounds. So he's not a small guy. He's not the biggest guy, but 6'2" is pretty good for this team. I like Pat Bryant overall as a player. I think he gets separation early, and I think he's got good hands. He's a feisty guy. You put him out there, he'll get open for you. You get him the ball. Consistent, catches the ball, gets open quick, catches the ball. If you have a quarterback gets rid of the ball quick, yeah, you can move some chains with Pat Bryant. The only thing is he's not very fast. He gets initial separation, but he's not going to separate with speed, and he's not going to take the top off. And he's just an okay guy. He shows almost nothing when it comes to run after the catch. So, he's just a guy. But if you can get open quick and you can catch the ball, then I got a place for you on this team, especially in the 6th round. And the last player I'm going to mention, wide receiver Caden Prather, Maryland, 6'3", 204 pounds. So he's got some height, and I like the production. The numbers don't jump off the page, but I think Caden Prather has the size that I'm looking for, the size profile I'm looking for. 6th round, 7th round guy. If you haven't got a big body yet, you take a chance on this guy. I don't think he has a lot of negative film. I don't think there's anything I can say negative about Caden Prather. I haven't looked into all of the analytics on him, but what I saw in the highlights I liked. I love the size, and that's important to me, the type, especially if you don't get one early. If you don't get Jaden Higgins in the 2nd round and you end up getting a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman or a tight end or the myriad of other things you can get early, there's still options to get players late. Caden Prather's a favorite of mine as a big body late guy. So there you go. 25 players that I have crushes on. Are we going to have those long standing relationships? Are we going to have a good marriage? We'll see. That's my list. And I'll be looking at this after the draft. I'll be looking at this after next year and seeing who broke my heart and who was the real deal. Well, thanks for tuning in. Like I said, I'm Joe. Subscribe to my channel, please. I need some subscribers. I be bleeding subscribers because I have these crazy takes. Grab an offensive lineman ahead of Ashton Genty. Oh, nobody wants to hear that. Everybody just wants their position reaffirmed. And I think as a Saints fan in a healthy Saints community, we need to have conversations. So let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. Let me know who are some of your sleepers and subscribe so you can get more Saints content. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Who dat?